So welcome everyone. Oh, it's my pleasure to be here with you today. I'm really excited to get to know a little bit about your organization as we share our thoughts today on what mindful leadership is. And you know, every time I do a talk around mindful leadership, what I find is that it's different every single time because there's so much involved with being a mindful leader. And I'm curious to know, what is it that you think of when you think of mindful leadership? So I would like you to share that with me in the chat, because rather than sitting back and only listening, what I would like you to do is bring more mindfulness to this moment, this opportunity within this talk that we're having together in this seminar, rather than sitting back and listening, is share your thoughts. So what are you thinking about what mindfulness means for you as a leader? Type a word, a phrase into the chat. And as Claire was saying, please communicate with me through the chat throughout the session. It's a lot more fun if I can see your questions and also your comments. Like, what are you thinking as we talk about things? So this is an opportunity for you to be more mindful, to be more present now. So that's what I'm going to challenge you to do is step that up. And I do see some comments coming in. Elise is saying empathy. So excellent. Very nice. Jennifer, caring and anticipating others and their feelings. Judy, focusing on the issue in front of you. Absolutely. And giving it your full attention. Nice definitions of what mindfulness can be, and from different perspectives. Very nice. Being considerate. From Karen, I see Mario Campbell, Susan also saying being engaged and respect of differences. So lots of great things coming in here. Mike is saying being present. So look through and engage with what your colleagues are saying in the chat. And I will be watching this as we go through this session and sharing some of those thoughts as we go forward. Also see from Lisa, it's Lisa, respectful and awareness of the differences again, and being open-minded, says Natalie. So thank you for sharing that. What I want to talk about today are a few things. One of them is just what it means to be mindful, and then to think about how distracted we really are. Are we really aware of how distracted we are? I think to a degree we are aware, but really the distractions have grown. We've just spent the past 2 years, for example, sitting in front of computers and meeting virtually with kids walking in the door of our space, pets jumping on our lap, all kinds of distractions around us as we work from home. So we really want to really reflect on how has that impacted our practices and the way we work, and what can we do as we start, slowly moving back into the workplace, either part-time or full-time in the coming 6 months or a year, and even start working in a hybrid environment. So those are some of the things coming that will just require us to work very, very mindfully. And I really want to talk about this idea of multitasking, doing 2 or more things at the same time, the impacts of that, and have you reflect on how you can change that practice if you do more than one thing at a time, which, let's face it, most of us do multitask or try to multitask. And then, the last part, what we're going to do is really talk about how to focus rather than working on autopilot. So autopilot being that distracted mode that we are in. So lots of great comments I'm seeing over there in the chat. Really nice. Thank you for that. So I have a few slides that I'm going to share with you. It's going to get us back to. So the first thing here is to just talk about what mindfulness really is. And as you can see here, it is about presence. And I saw that in the chat, people saying, it's about being present. It's about being in the current moment. And that is in fact what it is. It's being present in the current moment in your life and in the experience that you're having as it occurs. But the really important part around that is that it is about not judging it. It is about looking at it and saying, I'm having this experience, and not thinking, I should be doing this, I should have done, or this shouldn't be happening, versus judging the circumstance or the situation you're in. It is to look at it, to accept it in that moment, and then to choose to react out of a mindful state, meaning I have come into that present moment. I'm aware of what's happening inside of me, what's happening in my head, my emotions. I'm aware of the circumstances outside of myself, and I'm making a purposeful choice. So that is mindfulness. Are there other words that you associate with mindfulness? If there are, let's see what those are. I see a question in here from Mario about how do we balance the shareholder and corporate expectations to curtail multitasking, especially with monitoring social media while doing something else. So I'll come back to that question, Mario. So thank you for putting that into the chat. And just before we begin talking about some of the other things I mentioned, I want us to start with what I call a mindfulness moment. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you on a very short guided meditation. So I'm going to ask you to join in with me as I do that now. So let's come together. I'm going to ask you if you would like to turn off your camera during this part. That's a good idea. And I would like you to just settle into your chair and experience this mindfulness moment with me. So sit tall in your chair. Put your feet flat on the floor. Put your hands, open your hands, and put them on your lap in an upward. Close your eyes and just experience this moment as you listen to my voice. And what I want you to do, just take 3 deep breaths, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. By breathing from the diaphragm, where you push your stomach out, filling the lower part of your lungs first, and then the upper part of your lungs. And then let your breath settle into a normal rhythm. Keep your focus on your breath. And just notice as the air enters in through your nose, fills up your lungs, and then exits through your mouth. Notice any thoughts coming into your head. Thoughts about what you have to do after this meeting. And without judgment or getting caught up in that thought, just let that thought float away on a wave. So imagine a beach and the waves coming in and out, similar to the rhythm of your breath. Breathing in the fresh air, breathing out stress. Just let your body relax more deeply into your chair. thoughts that may sneak in, and just let them float away on the next exhale as the wave goes out. Just continue to focus on your breathing for the next 30 seconds, letting thoughts that may enter your mind slip away. Just take note of any feelings that might have arisen, or thoughts, feeling anxious or thinking, this is crazy, this doesn't work. Just let that thought slip away on the next wave as it goes back out on that beach. And as you exhale, tension you may feel release from your shoulders and your neck. Loosen your jaw. And then as we come back together, let's begin to move your hands and your feet. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes. In the chat, tell me how you're feeling now. Just put a word or a phrase, a word or two in the chat that tell me how you feel or what that experience felt like for you. Lisa's saying calmer, calm, good. Josephine, peaceful, nice, Josephine, thank you for that. How else you feel? Challenging, Judy? Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because it isn't easy to let those thoughts go. But what is the benefit of this? This is one of the most basic types of mindfulness practices that you can practice, is breathing, focusing on your breathing, and trying to let thoughts that tend to run continuously through our minds all day long and distract us from really focusing on the current moment. So it's one of those ways of letting those thoughts go, not getting caught up in them, and then focusing on the experience that we are having in the moment. And also there's that outward focus as well, being able to focus on the person who I am talking to. Not getting caught up in the thoughts that are in my head will allow me to focus on what's being said, to the nuances of a conversation. For example, the tone of voice that the person is using, the body language that I am observing. So it is a practice that has been scientifically proven to reduce stress, to allow us to be more focused, and to make better and more wise decisions, because we're more in the moment and more thoughtful and intentional about our next move. So thank you for sharing in that with me. Let's talk a little bit now about, let's talk a little bit now about this whole concept of presence. There's a lot of information out there about mindfulness. And I looked at a Harvard Business Review study, And what they came up with out of one of the studies that I looked at, which was very recent, it was done in the last few years, what that is that there are really three main things that are required for us to be more present. And that is what mindfulness is all about. And the first thing is about that stepping back and being able to observe almost as if I'm here looking down on myself. Because what happens is, and we're talking about times of stress here, times of stress where we are having a challenging conversation, where something has come at us that has caused us to feel out of our comfort zone or to be threatened. And so it's in those times when we really need to be most mindful. That's what we're really talking about here, and where we step back and observe, because what tends to happen, as you may be well aware, around stress, when that stress comes my way, the stress hormones are released into my body, which causes my breathing to go up and causes those thoughts to come into my head, and to the racing thoughts then cause my emotion to go up, and the fight or flight syndrome has been activated. When that has been activated, it is much harder for me to make good decisions because I'm in an emotional state. So it's to be able to step back and to prevent the hormones from being released through breathing activities. So if I feel stress coming on, by doing breathing, deep breathing, and focusing on my thoughts and clearing my mind and letting those thoughts release, I can reduce my stress and even prevent the stress hormones from being released into my body. So that's a really important element for us to understand. And then it's that remaining open and not judging what is happening, the way that I'm reacting. It's to be open. It's to look at the situation from a clear perspective, from a curiosity, and what can I learn from this situation, versus why is this person saying this to me, or why is this happening to me? And that openness and not judging, but the curiosity allows me to again say, this is interesting. I can learn from this. I wonder why this is happening and what I can learn from this experience that will help me in dealing with this situation now and in the future. So that's a really interesting three elements that we want to recognize are required for mindfulness. So the concept of presence is really the big picture here. So how do we show up? How do we show up at meetings? How do we show up in a virtual setting now? Are we prepared? Are we ready? What about our body language, our voice tone? What are all of those things saying about me, and how are they impacting others? So there's two key areas that really impact being present. And those are focus and awareness. And one feeds the other. These are complementary. They really go together, because in order to be aware, I have to focus on what's happening around me to give me the awareness of how others might be reacting to me. And I have to be aware in order to realize that I am not focused. So these are the two key elements of being present and thus being more mindful. So I want to show you a model here and just talk about different states that we can be in, and you may relate to some of these for sure. And then we'll just have a talk about also multitasking and how that impacts us. So what you see here is 4 different states that we can be working in. And so if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you see mindless. So mindless is when I am working on autopilot. As you can see here, I am not focused. I'm working here in this mindless area. So I'm working very distracted and working on autopilot. So here's an example of mindless. For example, let's say we're back in the office, we're working on site. I'm sitting in my office and someone pops in and says, you know, Jamal is ill today. He's not able to attend our meeting. So I thought that I would bring Jason or Susan, in fact, in order to talk about our project and give our project updates. So, so what do you think? I kind of glance up and say, yes, sure, that's a great idea. And then after the meeting, as what I learn is that the people that the person brought to the meeting were not really as aware of the project as they thought. And I realized were other people on the team who could have given an update and stepped in for Jamal more effectively. But because I was distracted, working on autopilot, I simply said yes. So did not make the best decision in that moment. So that's where, when we're in that mindless state, where we can make mistakes or we don't make the best decisions that we could if we were more focused and more aware. An example there that I think, you know, is in customer service when you're dealing with somebody on the phone and they have a script and they're talking to you. That's another example of mindless. You're not really connecting with the person because they're using a script, so there isn't thought behind it. It's the same thing as when someone does a presentation, and rather than having a communication with their audience, they have memorized the content of the presentation. So it's also mindless. So it not as connected, and you don't have as good a result out of that mindless state as we see. If you're moving around here, let's go to the creativity side, which is an interesting one because we do want to be creative. That's where we're very aware, we're open, we're brainstorming, we are coming up with great ideas, but not focused. So we're distracted. What does that mean? Because I want to be creative. The creative side is the generating of ideas, but in order for something to move towards actually doing, I have to document those great ideas and I have to take action on them. And when you're distracted, that isn't happening. So no focus on taking action. That's the creative mode. And then you move across to the upper quadrant here. And this is what's called flow. And as again, you can see here, I'm on autopilot. But I have a sharp focus. So I'm paying attention, but I'm kind of doing it automatically. So it could be, for example, while I'm exercising, it could be routine tasks that I'm doing. And it could be things like filing or sorting. I'm focused, but I'm kind of just doing it automatically. And so that can work for those types of tasks. But if I get into that mode, then I might miss some valuable information that would have been helpful for me to really focus on. And so again, I'm missing the reactions of people. I'm missing expressions. I'm missing things that would help me make better decisions again by not being fully engaged with that concept. And then in mindful, of course, is where I'm both focused and aware. So I'm reacting to people and tasks. I'm looking at both things. I'm aware of, for example, my unconscious biases. An example of that might be my affinity for people who are went to the same university as me, or who have a similar background to me. So I'm drawn to that person. And so that could be an example of an unconscious bias. And by being mindful of that, I want to make sure that as a leader, if I'm choosing a team of people, or I am looking at people to be part of a project, that I choose the people with the best competencies, with the best qualifications versus the people who I personally connect with the most. So that's the concept of being focused and distracted. Any thoughts or questions on this at all? If anyone has any comments on this, I'll look in the chat. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what your thoughts are at this moment. Just going to stop share for now. Anyone have any questions they want to share? Let me know. I wanted to ask you about this whole idea of multitasking. How many people would really agree that multitasking is a part of what we do? If you agree, just type yes in chat. Do you spend a portion of your day, let's say a significant portion of your day, multitasking? I know I would definitely say yes to that. Absolutely. And I think it's something that we tend to do. And I see a lot of people relating to that as they put yes into the chat. So here's one area of the way you work. Yes, and I see Patricia saying yes, but not effectively. Well said, Patricia and Susan, but would rather not. Yeah, you're really relating to where I'm going with this, which is that the way we are built, our brains, there's two sides to our brain, of course, left side and right side. So really, we are not built to do things, two or more things at the same time. And really the definition of multitasking, or the myth of multitasking, is that it's a mistaken belief that we can do two or more things at the same time and do them faster or better. So that is what a lot of us do believe that. And as a career coach for many years, I would look at job ads and you would often see, and I'm sure you still see that out there, you would see as part of some of the skills or the competencies that they would like you to be able to multitask. And, Danielle is saying, hey, no, he doesn't, because he doesn't believe humans can truly multitask. So you're very right about that, Danielle. Well said. So that concept of multitasking was very pervasive. It was years back that scientists started to challenge that notion, saying, we can't multitask. We're not able to multitask. But then let's think about that. We do actually do two things at the same time, don't we? I talk on the phone while I'm checking my emails. Well, if I'm really honest with myself and I'm kind of checking through my emails, I'm looking and I'm listening to you on the phone, what'll end up happening is, oh, I see an important email here, which grabs my focus. I'm not hearing what you're saying now. And when I come back to the phone, oh, sorry, what did you say? I just missed that. So it's really, we're not able to focus on those two things at the same time. What we do is what's called switching. We switch from one task to another. So I would mention eating as a really good example of something we do while we're doing other things a lot of the time. For example, I eat while I watch TV. And so what happens is I watch the show and I'm eating and I look down and my food is gone, but I haven't really mindfully eaten that food. So I don't feel satisfied, for example. And that's what happens for a lot of us when we eat while doing other things. I'm sitting at my desk, I'm eating my lunch while I'm, again, scanning my emails or searching through, doing some research and kind of trying to find some articles, and I'm eating as I go. I'm not eating mindfully. So therefore, I don't taste the texture. I don't smell, or I'm not conscious of the smell of the food. I'm not really experiencing the different flavors. And so I'm not really mindful of having eaten or feeling satisfied. And what that switching cost does is it means that our focus is disrupted from the task we were on. So just imagine this. I'm working on a research project, and I'm gathering data and I'm starting to put together an outline of what I want to do. And I'm producing a report, combining information from different sources. And I'm working on that, and it takes about 15 minutes of time to get truly focused on a task in which you're fully engaged. So it takes me that long to get productive, is what science is saying. And then I have a disruption. The phone rings. I answer the phone. I break my focus. So I'm not focused now on it anymore. So that's a switching task, switching from my research to answering the phone or somebody coming in my office. And then there's a cost of that, the switching task cost, which means it takes me that amount of time again to get back into a mode where I am productive. So being a motorist, William is saying, a motorcyclist taught me not to multitask, can be deadly for yourself or others. And certainly something we need to learn around using our phones as we're driving. An absolutely great example, William. Go bikers and keep your focus on your driving. We can't look at our phones. That's really another wonderful example. So then the other thing that I think I want to mention here is around this idea of moving from one task that I've fully completed to another with no break in between. And so in rapid succession, I'm moving from one task to another. That also has a cost, because to be mindful, to be effective in our work, we need to reset. So people who schedule back-to-back meetings, virtual meetings, boom, they're out of one, they're a few minutes late for the next one. They haven't even had time to assimilate what happened in the first meeting, make a few notes, digest what happened, and they're boom right into another meeting. So that's an example of things happening in rapid succession, and we need time to reset and we need time to recharge. So that's one of the things that I would recommend, is that we give ourselves that time to reset and to recharge so that we can be fully present in the moment. I'd like to ask you, just as we're talking about the whole idea of multitasking and how there's a cost to that switch factor, is how can we actually make space to be more mindful? Because when asked, leaders will say, one of the things, it's great to say, I should be more mindful and I should do things differently, but I'm so busy. I'm working full-time, so hard at writing goals and focusing on delivering on those goals. So how do I make space to do that in my life? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. Right? Some of you I know will have some ideas here about how you can make space. Anyone have any thoughts they'd like to share here? I'm looking in the chat, and I do have some ideas to share with you, but I'd like you to take a moment and reflect on that. So how do we do that? I'm looking there to see, and I'll share a few ideas that I have as well. The first one is the awareness part. And certainly as a manager, one of the things you can do is how you start your day. You are most alert, and for most people, most productive at the beginning of your day. Your mind is sharpest at the beginning of the day. That has been proven scientifically again. So what do I tend to do at the beginning of my day? I tend to go through those mindless emails, which puts me into a flow state, and sets me up for a distracted approach to the rest of my day. So one idea is to avoid going to emails, unless, of course, there may be an urgent one that you see, and to train people to, if there's an urgent email, to mark it as such. But rather than scrolling through, is to use that time to do the toughest things in your day. So that way I can be most productive, because we're working hard, but are we working well? That's the other thing. And just one other thing I wanted to share about the switching cost is, and I saw this come across my phone and my email just recently, is that we can lose up to 40% of our productivity through this switching cost when we're doing things, switching back and forth between tasks. So a huge area there that we can make some real inroads on. Vandana is saying being aware and focused helps with the productivity. This in turn reduces the total time taken to handle or complete a task. Yes, that is true. And working at our best time of the day is the other thing. The other idea is to give yourself mindfulness moments in a day. So to integrate even 5 to 10 minutes in your calendar, you schedule it in every day. Now, it could be at the beginning of the day for you, where you sit quietly and you just breathe and reflect for 5 minutes, or before going into a difficult situation, having a difficult conversation. It's to do a check. How am I feeling right now? And to do some deep breathing, 2-3 minutes of reflection, and to ground yourself in a state of intention and mindfulness so that you can enter that potentially difficult conversation, or stand in front of a group, or take on the challenge that you see coming in a mindful, clear, and calm state. So there's that as well. Use task management systems. I'm seeing Danielle saying here, absolutely. Look at the practices that you have and say, are there things that I can stop doing? I'm just pausing there because I want you to reflect on that. Can I stop doing some of the things that I do? And so look for ways that you can do that. Also, potentially delegating some of the things that you do. But this idea of, let's bring it back to being aware of where I am showing up well and where I need to show up more. And, I think life right now is complicated. As leaders, we need to be courageous. We need to be fully present, and we need to have the courage to do that. So again, I want to finish off. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. I want to finish off just on a couple of things. One, I'm just going to put a couple of things into the chat for you. One is, I have a handout. You asked, how do we do all this? So in the chat, here it is. This is a link to a document that is called 15 Ways to Become a Mindful Leader. So if you click there, you can enter your email address for me and I will send that to you. So it's, rather than going through all of those here, I've mentioned some of them, but there are 15 very specific ways of how you can build mindfulness into your work as a leader. So I think that's something that I would recommend all of you click on that. Just type your name in there, and it does you get added to my mailing list. And I assure you, I only send out 1, maybe 2 emails in a month. But I would love for all of you to really do that and get that document and have that available for you. So if you click on the link and put your email in there, that's the easiest way to do it. I also would love to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. That's another way that you can talk to me, or to also request that document. So I'll put that into the chat as well. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and to be part of this day. And honestly, there's so much to be learned about being mindful, about being present, that I do post a lot of things that you might find interesting on LinkedIn as well, if you want to join there. So I've put that link in as well. But to finish off, here are my final thoughts. And they are that we talked about awareness. We talked about focus. So you can make the changes that you can make if you focus more on the current moment, can have an incredible and profound and immediate change on your workday and on your relationships with others. Because when you are present, you're connecting more with that person. You're looking at them. You're thinking not about what your own thoughts in your head, which we can have 6,000 thoughts a day, by the way, and most of them are negative and repetitive. We shift those out of our head and think about that person. What are they trying to say to me? What's their intent? What is the emotion behind their words? And your relationships become much stronger as well. So it is really an incredibly powerful thing to be more mindful. Not easy, takes practice, takes focus. That's the other thing. So bring that focus. And I would love, as I say, to hear from some of you. Thank you so much for coming. And if there's any questions, I'll open it up for the last few minutes here. But intentionally, I am leaving time for you to get to the next thing. Because if you just go from one thing to the next without having time to process and focus and prepare, then that is what leads to, difficulties focusing. So again, if there's any questions, I'd love to hear from you and see what those are. So please share those with me if you have anything you want to share with me before we close out. Anyone have anything they'd like to share? Any thoughts, any comments, any questions for me? Claire, thank you so much for inviting me to this great event. And it's been a real pleasure to see everyone and be here with all of you today. And Mike Kierstead, again, also thank you for inviting me to speak to your members. And it's been a real pleasure. And so I say to you as we close out today, you know, have a mindful day, have a mindful moment, and, you know, build those connections and do it with courage. So thank you for having me with you today.
Thank you